Hi, Planet Wayne here. This is the second part in a two-part feature of how to build a working firing range setup using the Programmable Rednet Controller. If you caught my earlier video, I needed to split it up into a couple of sections because it was getting a bit long when I got it through editing. So we'll carry on where the action left off, so to speak, and we'll jump straight in with picking up and how to code up the logic in the Programmable Rednet Controller. And thanks a lot, and I shall catch you at the end of the video. Okay, we're in the programming interface now of the Rednet controller, and I'm just going to skip through each of the functions that we've got going on in here that make the lanes work. As I said before, 10 functions that we're using out of the 11 slots. The other one there is for future expansion, so to speak, so hopefully we'll have something a bit more on that later. Okay, so slot 1 that we've got going on here is a randomizer. And this is basically generating a random number between, in this instance, 1 and 4. And this is the thing that the system uses to randomly switch the targets. Although this doesn't actually change the targets, this is generating the random number to make that selection a bit further on. So there's a couple of values that we've got set here. Both are set to constant values. There's the minimum value of 1, and then there's a maximum value of 4. Now, we've only got 3 targets, so what I was finding is when that was actually set to 3, we'd never actually get the last target being selected. So setting that to 4 seems to cure that as a problem. So that's basically what this is doing. It's a randomizer, and its output is being set into variable 0. And that gets used later on to actually set the targets, or to at least select where the target gets set from. Slot 2 is the hit detection, and basically this is all coming from the upper face of the controller, or the connections to the controller. We've got the yellow target, or the yellow channel for target 1, green for target 2, and pink for target 3. So these are the ones that the targets actually are sat on when you have a look at the lane design. So as soon as it detects a pulse on each of those, it sets variable 5 to say, hey, we've got a hit. And that's using the 3 input OR function on the controller. And basically all an OR gate is a simple thing that says, okay, set the output if one of the available inputs is actually set high. So each of the targets, as soon as they get hit, comes into here, it sets variable 5 to say, yes, we've got a hit. Slot 3, 4 and 5 are the target latches. And basically what these do is set the target to be available to hit. It's using the SR latch function of the controller, which basically is a set reset latch. Now what that's doing is almost like a lever. When you press the lever on or set the lever, it stays on until you set it off or turn it off, and that's basically what we've going on here. The reset is coming from variable 5, which, as you think, hold on, we've just been using that to detect a hit, so why are we resetting the target? Well, that then comes into a variable being set in this case, variable 1, to set target 1. So we've got 3 of these, each on different variables for the set, and each going to a different I/O channel for the output. Again, this is on the upper face of the controller, and it's on the white channel for target 1. Next one is variable 2 to set, and that's on the orange channel. And the next one is variable 3, and that's on the magenta channel. So again, SR latch gets reset when variable 5 detects a hit, and set when we've got either variables 1 through 3 being set, which is coming up in a later programming slot. And this is it, slot 6. This is the target selection feature. Now we're actually using a DMUX 16 out analog function on the controller, and basically what that does is, depending on the input on variable 5, if we have a value in variable 5, it gets sent to one of these 16 output channels based on the variable that's in this case, variable 0. Now if you remember variable 0, that was right at the very beginning. That's our random number generator, which is generating a random number based on 1 through 4, or as we're using here, 1 through 3. So if that gets set to random number gets generated of 2, we get a hit coming through on variable 5. So variable 5 gets routed through this and comes out and sets the value high in variable 2. Now if you remember back a couple of screens, whoops, gone the wrong way. Variable 2 is the set value for the second target. So that's how that bit's working. That's the clever bit behind all of that. The targets get reset on variable 5, and then as soon as it comes through to these values here, that resets then on 1, 2 and 3 based on the random number that we got generated and the fact that we've got an input from a hit detection. So again, that's based on hit detection rather than just a static variable, because what we don't want these things to do is keep randomly flipping these things around, which is what I was finding if I'd got just a static value set. So variable 5, once it's been used and has gone through the system, gets reset back to 0, so it doesn't keep flipping the targets around there. So that's that on slot 6. That's the target selection feature that we're using, or using the demux feature to select our targets. Slot 7 is our reset switch, and this is a real simple one. All we're doing is turning a pulse that we're getting in on the upper channel on the purple channel, one shot pulsing it to generate a single pulse on, again, the upper channel, but this time is the yellow channel. Now, looking at the circuit, you might think, well, that's one of the target selections, and you're absolutely correct. What we're actually doing is fooling the system into thinking that we've just hit the target, which basically, from the previous sets that we've got going on here, generates a new random number, resets all the targets, and then pushes that random number to then select another target in the stack that we've got here. But again, it's a cheap way of doing it. It's the simplest way of actually doing this, and we're using this a bit further on to reset counters and such like as well. So not only are we resetting targets just by pretending to hit a target, that gets used a bit later on to reset counters as well. Slot 8, that's our empty slot. That's the one that we're not currently using, so nothing to worry about on that one. Slot 9 is our Multipulse Channel, or basically this is the thing that generates the pulsed output on the lights and the note block that we're standing on at the when we're shooting down the target range. And the way that this works is we've got a input value that's constantly set to 15, so the highest value that we can set on input. It's being started by a value appearing in variable 9, which we haven't got to yet. We've got a count going on of 8, so 8 pulses or 8 cycles, and each of the cycles are lasting for a count of 1 for high and 1 for low. Now, my first YouTube video actually goes into an explanation as to how this multipulse function actually works, and we're using it here to generate the flashing lights and the note block tones when you've completed a run of target hits effectively. So that's what that's going on here. The next one is the counter. Now, this is quite simply the thing that counts your score. Literally, we're getting an input from, or an increment on the variable, an increment on the counter from variable set on number 5. So number 5 is being used for hit detection. So as soon as we hit something, it increases the counter by 1. We're not using the decrease function, so you can't minus your scores or anything like that. We've got an upper limit that's been set to 10, so that constant value of 10 there sets the upper limit or high score effectively that you need, or highest score that you can get to on the lane. And we're also using this reset line again to reset the counter, which is on the purple channel coming in from the upper face of the controller. So again, that reset button not only pretends to hit a target, it also resets the value in this counter and sends that to, or detects on that using the purple channel there. Now the next two, let me think, variable 10, yeah, that's the one. The output of the counter, so the actual number that's stored in the counter, is being stored in variable 10. And that's what this is for here. So the V output on here is variable number 10. So whatever score that we've got gets stored in there. The Q output that we've got on here, that gets set when you hit your target high score or counter high score. So because we've got 10 that's set on there, as soon as we get to 10, that sets variable 9, and if you remember from the previous slides, variable 9 is the start of this multipulse counter here. So as soon as you get to the end of the score, 9 is the thing that triggers this multipulse, which effectively flashes the lights 8 times and makes the note block sound. Right, so to the last slot that we've got going on here, and then this is coming back to our 7-segment encoder. And basically this takes the input from variable 10, which is our counter output, if you remember from the previous slot, and basically encodes it to fit our 7-segment display. So again, one thing to watch out for, make sure that your colours are absolutely set correctly, otherwise the display will just be complete and utter nonsense. And in this instance, all of our outputs are going on the down face of the controller, and as you can see there, we've got all of our colours corresponding to the various segments on the display. So one to watch out for when you're coding that up, if it doesn't make sense, make sure that your colours are accurately represented and connected on the bottom of each of the lamps that you've got in the channels. So that's the programming logic on there. Hopefully it makes sense. Feel free to ask any questions on that one. It can get a little bit heavy, but hopefully all good. Okay, so that's the programming logic. Hopefully not too heavy. There's a bit, as I said before, there's a bit going on with that, so it can get quite heavy in there. The only thing really left to do now is to just tidy this thing up and add any extra features that you want to do from a point of view of lamps and that sort of thing. These are all tied into the detection channels that are coming off each of the bottom of the target. So we've got yellow, green and pink going on at the background there, and that's just tied in. Again, you can pick any colour lamps that you want to do on that one. So we've got yellow, green and pink on there, and yellow, green and pink lamps underneath there. One thing to be mindful of is don't take the RedNet cable from the from this upright piece of cable that's going on here, because what will happen is you'll instantly connect to the lane that's next to the one that you're currently doing. So, and that'll have adverse effects on targets and so on based on what's been set. So one thing to watch out for on that one, just come down from the actual run that starts your first target selection off there. And it's quite a simple job then of just running it across to pick up the three lamps. Oops, one too many there. Again, be mindful that we've got automatic connection here going on, so just set that back off to not connect. Don't use the actual cable to do the disconnect on that one, because obviously as you come to place the lamp on the bottom of it, it won't make the connection, as we found out earlier. So on that one, if I go, let's pick the yellow one, come into there and plop that on there, go with the green, put you on there, and with the pink, and put you on there. All we need to do now is just make sure that the channels are correct. So first one is yellow, next one is green, and the last one is, oops, on the floor. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, and we've also changed the connection mode on the cable, so that doesn't help. There we go. So that needs to be on pink. And that's that. Now the only other thing to be mindful of, again, is when you're trying to cover all of this up, the actual RedNet cable takes a full block and you can't put micro blocks on the edge of it. The closest that they'll go is actually within the block of the adjoining space. So if I put a block just in front of that there, if you can see looking down that wall there, the micro blocks that I've got going on in front of this cable aren't in the space that cable occupies. It has to sit on the next block. And that's purely because of the way that the cable connects to adjoining blocks. If you remember, we've got full face connections going on with the lamps, and that basically takes up any space that might be available for microblocks to fit in. So one thing to be mindful of when you're designing your lanes and so on that one. So I can bring that one across. I can bring one and just actually keep running those out from there just to finish that off, I guess. Let's see, where are we there? We can come down on here. We can come out to the side on there and down there and put one on the face there. Same with that side, down there, and one on the on the face in there. Oops. Again, remember to squat when you're doing this. And then we can either put one on the front and cover up the back. Now, again, simple thing, just to remind you that these cable connections are trying to get a connection to the blocks that you're putting on the side of there. We need the cable connection to come from this one straight off the top of the controller, otherwise we'll lose our button. So the way to get around that is just select on the hitbox that's actually on the connection type and cycle through the different versions till you don't get a cable connection on that face. And that takes the problem away. So if anything tries to interfere or put redstone into there, you know you're not going to get any interference on the cable. So if I just finish that off, whoops. Now the only other thing that I'd got going on is these brick strips just to fill in the edges. And again, what we can do with these is you can just about creep it in a little bit, just so it fills in a bit of the edge, but that's about as far as you can go. I don't think we're going to get another one in there. No, as soon as you put the next one in, it expands on the size of the block. So just enough to cover the edges. Don't think it looks too bad. Again, you can color code your lanes and so on if you wanted to. Just remember to adjust your programming to suit that this is the reset button, so anything that uses the purple on the upper channel, just make sure you've got that set to the correct color. The only other thing that we've got on here typically is some glass tops just to stop you walking into the lane. And that's that. So that's a simple lane design. As I say, it's all done with the programming controller in there. Hopefully that's made sense. I'm working on another expansion for this, which is what I've got going on over here, so a bit of a sneak peek from that point of view. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Obviously leave a like and any comments down the bottom. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask, and thanks a lot, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.